the Sword of Mercury. Today, we're going to be covering something a little outside the lines of fitness, but it has to do with wellness as a whole. And we're going to be talking about how to deal with negative people. So, I guess this spans into like a lot of categories, which we'll get into like later. All the personality traits or character archetypes that kind of define what is a negative person. But typically, we're allowing that to be in the realm of people who typically you feel like drained or like have disrupted the energy in the environment, disrupted the natural harmony of the environment, and typically in like new agey spirituality. This video is not about that, but just to make like a little point about that, it's typically like these people are referred to as like vampiric or like almost demonic people, because they almost like they attempt to take the energy from other people by like, trying to wind them up in their own drama and stuff like that. So, and you can spot these people pretty easily. If you see that one person who's always complaining about something, always negative, always going on about this or that, like just trying to find reasons to get upset about something in life, somebody who is inherently in their being addicted to the hormones of stress, that is like essentially a negative person. So as much as possible you want to avoid these people like the plague, but I'm going to, if in the case that you're not, because I understand there's like essentially like you might have to deal with these people. Maybe they're a relative, or maybe they're somebody who you work with in the workplace. Maybe they're even like, like a teacher or authority figure, right? So somebody that you maybe like you can't get away of being around for certain periods of time, right? So I'm gonna teach you how to like negate a lot of that detrimental energy impact. So, and one of the things I'll say just starting here at the video is one of the the best ways that you can overcome these people is essentially just by vibrating higher. Because if you continue to raise your vibration up and up and up, like exponentially, your energy will go to a place where they cannot reach. It's almost like if you ever heard the analogy with the eagle and the crows, or like the eagle will soar high and the crows will try to like peck at the eagle's like back or whatever, but the eagle just like keeps soaring higher and higher and the crows fall off because they can't deal with that amplitude, right, or altitude. So, but same thing in this case. We're talking about vibration. So essentially, if you're vibrating so high, that's one of the ways to essentially negate these detrimental energy impacts. If you're interested in looking into those concepts, especially around how that relates to the angelic hierarchy, I encourage you to look into the Church of Powers, which is identified with the Church of Pergamos in Revelation, relates to Archangel Michael and stuff, but like essentially the angels of the hierarchy of the powers are essentially the warriors who will battle against like the adversarial forces. So like they essentially help you, assist you with battling like spiritual warfare and stuff like that. So, but essentially the premise is that you just keep vibrating higher and higher and higher, so that essentially you're not affected by that energetic intrusion. That stuff aside, we'll get into the like hardcore concepts of the video right now, which is a bit more streamlined and maybe in a bit neutral place versus like the spirituality spectrum. So, step one, be aware, be objective. So the thing about this is, your basic thing for life in general should be to always be aware and objective about what is going on around you. And that's why so many people emphasize, third eye, blah, 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 blah. You have the key to reality once you have the third eye. It's because you have your awareness completely in a state of clarity where you're able to see objectively without any lenses or preconceived notions on things, so you can be genuinely receptive to the energy in the field and then move in accordance to how you perceive that, right? So, simple enough. The other part of that is knowing who you are. So being objective about the environment, but also being objective of yourself. So if somebody tells you something and it doesn't feel like it resonates with you, that's because you know who you are, and that energy that they're attempting to basically bring into the environment, it doesn't resonate with you. So it's about also listening to your intuition and using your insight. So intuition is the authenticity part. That's your truth. The insight is that objective awareness, being able to see that truth objectively. So being able to see, being aware, being objective, and then seeing yourself, being aware of yourself and being objective of yourself, knowing who you are. It's another key part. So that's step one. These are in sequential order. Step two is realize the nature of people. So realize the nature of people. Okay. Essentially, when you look at people, typically, if somebody is attempting to, do something, typically there's a reason behind it. Whether it's because it's a natural part of their character, because they're trying to get something, or whatever it is, right? Realize the nature of individuals. Okay, well, this person's telling me something. Is it for their own good? Is it supposed to make them feel better about their ideologies on life and attempt to project that onto me? Or is it somebody genuinely trying to help me? And you'll be able to sense that energy right away. And, if somebody is you pick up patterns on people over time, right? So if somebody has constantly spewed negativity, the chances of them doing something for their own best interest in terms of sharing information or bringing information to you is probably going to be for their own interest and not yours, right? So just be aware of those factors, be objectively aware, reflect and say, okay, why is this person telling me this? Is this for me or is it for them? If you're talking to a stranger for the first time and they seem genuinely positive and what they're saying is actually resonating with you, then chances are it's the other. It's that they're genuinely trying to give you life advice. Also, the thing about, I would say, phenomenon of people sometimes feeling more comfortable to talk to strangers, why people go and see therapists or, ask a stranger a question, is because typically a stranger will have no preconceived thing to attempt to stray you away from the path or whatever, right? Unless they're just some narcissist who is trying to spread their bullshit around, right? About, oh yeah, this is what I believe, so this is what you have to believe, right? And again, you'll be able to pick up on that pretty easily. But a lot of times with strangers, they'll just give you some actual sound advice because it's that they don't have a pre-existing connection to you as an individual. It's the first time they're meeting you, right? So of course the chance that their opinion is going to be swayed by their own self-interest is going to be a lot lower. In any case, realize the nature of people. And yes, some people are just scum. There's a lot of people out there who they genuinely only care about their own viewpoint on the world people's lenses, even if they pretend to be open and say, oh, yeah, well, that's a point, but, and then they go on about their own, like, whatever, right? So, again, that's how you can spot these people. Some people are just scum. Some people genuinely don't want to help you. Some people are just trying to project their own stuff onto other people. And this is like the nature of like almost like this almost demonic type of person, right? NPC energy. So, Matrix type of energy. So number 3, analyze what information is present. Discernment. So, analyze what they're saying, but again, going in this order: objective, realize the nature, and then analyze the information and use discernment. So what do I mean by that? So if somebody's telling you something, basically go through those steps, and when you get to this stage, see what they're saying and see if any part of that actually is beneficial in some way. And it doesn't mean that what they're saying is correct. It can be that they say something and you interpret the meaning completely different, but in a way that's beneficial to you. So if somebody is saying like, oh, you shouldn't waste your time doing that, maybe you interpret that as, yeah, that person is right. Like, I can spend my time, like, evolving it first and then, like, returning to that thing, or, basically approach what they're saying from a completely different angle. So basically, they say something to you, and you, like, basically take the words that have been said, like the messaging, and saying, okay, well, what is the meaning of this which resonates actually with me? So it could be that, like, somebody's trying to convince you of something, but the words that are coming out of their mouth saying, like, oh, like, this is what you believe, or this is what you should believe, or something like that. Maybe, for example, this is what they say, right? So, but while that person is saying this is what you believe, maybe you have a thought about something that you're already currently doing and that is beneficial to your development, and like you associate what they're saying of, oh, this is what you should be doing with that thought that you just had, right? So yeah, you're right, that is what I should be doing. And because it's the thought that is genuinely aligned with your own benefit, right? So can anything here be beneficial, right? So maybe what they're saying actually has merit. Maybe some parts of that information can be integrated, but maybe it's also that they say something and you interpret that meaning completely different, or you're receiving messages from the divine and like you're associating what they just said with confirming that message, right? So there's another way to look at it, right? It's about changing your perspective around to make what they say fit your development, right? So that's another thing. So can anything here be beneficial? Take what you can from the situation, because again, if you're experiencing a situation with another person, even if it's a negative person or whatever, chances are that interaction may have some piece of useful information, which is why that event is transpiring in the first place. So always try to look at this as what here can be beneficial to my development. So always walk with that mindset through life, and you'll be amazed actually how much you can benefit from that mindset alone, or applying that to some kind of situation that you're in that maybe on the surface level doesn't seem very beneficial. Number 4, this is one of the most important, which is why it's last. Purify your energy. So after you interact with these people, you want to really cleanse your energy and ensure that it is realigned to the state that it was in when it was undisturbed. And the reason why you want to do that, it's almost like, going outside and doing yard work. Maybe you're digging up the lawn, or you're shoveling dirt or whatever, right? You're doing something which is like hard work, and that is like necessary to be done, and like it's a task, and it has benefit or whatever. like you're moving the energy, you're moving the soil, whatever. Maybe you're using your hands and digging up the soil in the ground or whatever. But after, you're gonna go inside and wash your hands, right? So it's the same thing, right? So anytime, like, it's essentially the same principle as like washing your hands when they get dirty, right? You know, if you go and touch something that's dirty, you want to wash your hands after instinctually, right? Same thing with the energy in your field. You want to purify your energy. So and it doesn't have to be in the steps that it's here in the brackets. These are in no sequential order. Like, these are in sequential order, but these inside the brackets are in no sequential order. So you want to cleanse your energy, you want to smite the negative energy, and you want to send any negative energy back to the individual. So, cleansing, pretty self-explanatory. You want to cleanse your field, you want to smite the energy. So smiting is a term that's typically used with angels or angelic beings to mean to hit hard or with some force, to basically cut down or bring some strong force, typically that of light or divine energy, to basically conquer or overcometh some lower force like demons or negative energy beings, right? And then send the energy back. So what you can also do is allow that energy to be sent back. If you feel like energy that is negative is in your field, you can send that energy back to the individual, right? So some things, like one of the things you probably heard multiple times throughout your life is I'm rubber and you're glue. Whatever you bring against me bounces off and sticks to you. So that sounds silly, but words are spells. That's why it's called spelling. So if you say that internally or externally after this, it's almost like you're casting that spell for that energy to be sent back to that person. So if you go through these in this order, I guarantee you it will be beneficial. Now we'll spin around and we'll look at the other aspect of this. I'll push off the wall here. So, who am I dealing with? Maybe actually I'll I gotta start doing more ASMR during these videos. It's becoming more just like informative. In any case, I guess you can see my good side now. Okay, so who am I dealing with, right? So typically the one you will most is most common is a narcissist, right? Especially like people who are just attempting to project their ideologies onto other people, right? So like I'll say this first before I get into the lesson, but one of the things that was really funny to me that was described one time was the difference between a narcissist and a psychopath is if you call a narcissist, they'll get angry, or if you like call them out as one, they'll get angry. If you call out a psychopath, they won't get angry, because they don't care really, right? They're kind of unfeeling, right? So this is the thing, but like for essentially identifying who these people are. So that's a big way. If like the person that you're in conversation with or whatever, or you're who's disrupting the energy in your field is constantly getting angry and just riled up, you're probably dealing with a narcissist. So narcissist is somebody who's constantly getting like riled up or constantly trying to prove that they're right or better than someone else, or has almost like a very inflated sense of their own self-importance, right? And most of the time it's not justified. Like I would say if you have a like big ego and it's justified because you've accomplished all these different things and you're a successful individual, or maybe you're just having an inflated ego in certain aspects, like, you're a really good athlete and you boast about it, you brag about it, you say, oh yeah, I'm the best or whatever. That's not being narcissistic, in my opinion. That's just like having a big ego, but it's justified, right? A narcissist is somebody who has an inflated sense of their own ego, but it's not justified by their own experience or actions or anything that they are. It's just they're deluding themselves into believing that they're better than everybody else when they're really not. And most of the times it comes from almost this inferiority complex, feeling inferior to other people or whatever, right? So that's a narcissist. They'll constantly get angry or riled up or constantly try to bully other people. So that's who who you're dealing with in that case, right? Psychopath. Psychopath is somebody who's kind of cold and unfeeling, and they really don't care about how their actions affect other people. But the thing about psychopaths, which differentiate them from the other character types, is that a psychopath is typically somebody who is, they don't care, right? So, they won't necessarily always get enraged or riled up, perhaps at least not visibly. It might be beneath the surface level, or they might be, abnormally, calm or whatever. They might be abnormally calm or whatever. In essence, though, it's somebody who's kind of not immediately reactive to those things, right? Excuse the pauses. Just trying to make sure no background sound comes in. In essence, somebody who's abnormally calm, maybe, or in some cases where they could be enraged. Sometimes it's on a surface level, sometimes it's beneath the surface. But in any case, it's just somebody who's kind of detached from that sense of empathy or caring about how their actions affect other people, right? And a lot of times this can be almost caused by what they experience in younger years and stuff like that, in terms of maybe, who knows, maybe their environment was filled with these other character archetypes, which led them to becoming detached from how their actions affect other people or whatever, because it's almost goes into this every person for themselves mentality, right? So that's a psychopath. They're kind of more along the lines of not caring how their actions affect other people, and things extreme acts of violence or whatever, typically it doesn't affect them at all. It just seems it is what it is, right? In any case, I would say actually, in terms of it is what it is, that's an important life lesson as a whole, but in any case, Sociopath is somebody it's similar character traits to a psychopath, but it's somebody who's typically more, I would say, it's less intense in the sense where it's almost more just ambitious, ruthlessly ambitious. You see a lot of sociopaths in business or whatever. People who scheme or connive or manipulate to essentially get the outcome they want. This is a sociopath. Sociopath and psychopaths they overlap in a lot of character traits, but psychopath is somebody who's more almost detached, and violence and stuff doesn't affect them as much. Sociopath is a bit more prone to visible rage, I would say, than a psychopath. Like I said, psychopath, it can be beneath the surface. Sociopath, typically it's more on the surface. You can almost think of a sociopath as a more a less intense version of a psychopath in some sense. That's why you see them a lot in business. But somebody who's typically more focused on just like ambition and like, you know, achieving their goals by any means necessary. So these character traits are actually becoming more common within the 21st century just because of the way the matrix and the system is set up. Now we're going more into like character traits which maybe overlap with some of these earlier ones. Boomerang personality. So boomerang personality, somebody who, like, if you like try to almost like say one view, like their instinct is to oppose that viewpoint, and a lot of times they won't even see that this is a character trait to their own personality because they've been blinded by this and conditioned into it for so long. Typically, like narcissists, a lot of the times will also have boomerang personality. So like, it's almost like if I say like, I don't know, like oranges are better than apples, they'll say, oh, apples are better, but not because they actually believe it, but just because you have a contrasting viewpoint, right? So that's boomerang personality, somebody who like will say the opposite thing just because it's the contrast of what you said, and they're again trying to project their worldview onto you even if they don't believe it. So this is how like I said, this is how demonic and like negative entity driven some of these people are. Like some of these people are straight up possessed. They will like adopt a viewpoint simply for the fact that it's in contrast or is the opposite of what you said, even if they don't believe it. So some people are just like unconsciously possessed by this like negative energy, right? So you have to be very like aware around these people. Like I said, you know, the first method you should go about is avoiding them, right? But if you can't do that, that's why I outline all these things here. Boomerang personality. Another one is the mentally ill. So this one is a bit more, it's not so much of like something that somebody is like doing or some fault of some individual. Some of these people are like genuinely sick, and I don't mean that like, oh yeah, this person is sick. I mean that, listen, like these people actually like need help. They need to like talk to someone. But like some of these people like also have overlapping qualities of like say mental illness and like narcissism, right? Which like it makes it even more like almost detrimental to be around these people, right? Again, excuse my pauses, but in any case, like, yeah, it makes it even more detrimental to be around these people. Like, some people might be a narcissist, but they also have like bipolar or whatever, right? So you just really have to be aware around these people. And, you know, I will always emphasize this, and like I said, excuse my pauses, just trying to make sure I minimize the background sound, as I said. So, yeah, one thing I will always say, and like you might need to remind yourself of this, is that essentially you have to look out for yourself first, right? Don't try and go like, you know, almost like go have the savior complex, go try to save people or whatever. A lot of these people cannot be helped except maybe by like a therapist or whatever, somebody who will constantly sit down with them like week after week and go through these things. Cause like a lot of these people, like I'll just say this in terms of why you should not try to save people, is that a lot of these people have these like, if they're just habits, this is especially true too, is that a lot of people have like developed this mentality and these character traits over years and years and years of conditioning and just repeating those thought loops and allowing that to like become stronger over time, and basically themselves to being that person. So you thinking that you're gonna come in and save them from like themselves of this way that they're thinking, it's not gonna happen, because think of how hard it is for you to change yourself with you consciously putting in work to doing that, and you putting in work every day to become a better individual, versus like somebody who's like, they don't want to change and then you're trying to help them. If they don't want to change, if they genuinely don't have that instinctual desire within themselves to create change, you're not going to change. Nobody can do it for them. So don't go out there and try to save people, because it's not going to happen. You're just going to waste your energy and waste your time. So, and you know, it's hard for some people to hear that, because like I said, some of these people, it's their, like, you know, people who are maybe their relatives or people in their workplace, or people who they still see like some I wouldn't say, like, almost like potential in, right? Like, oh yeah, if you know, only this person didn't have this quality or whatever. Maybe it's even somebody you're attempting to get into a relationship with or whatever. You cannot save these people, because they genuinely don't want to be helped. It's different if they come to you and say, hey, like, you know, I think I'm struggling with something, you know, can you help me? Even then, I would still say be cautious. But if they do not come to you and say that, then do not try to save people. This is a video for how to save yourself. So that should be your only priority in life. Unless somebody comes and asks you for help, do not try to go around helping people. So, in any case, yeah. And the whole thing is that you're competing with programming that they've programmed themselves with, and don't want to consciously break that. And again, like I said, think of how much effort you put into, like, making yourself a better person day after day, like advancing yourself little by little, and being on that journey, and you consciously wanting to do that, investing all your energy into becoming a better person, to developing yourself, being on that mission of personal development, being on that journey. And then think of that, like, difference between how hard that is for you, still pushing up against your own blocks, versus somebody who's not even trying, and then you think you're gonna come in and change something. It's not gonna happen. So again, relating to the mentally ill, that's another thing. If these people want to get help, let them go talk to a professional, let them go talk to a therapist, let them go talk to somebody, and let them do that from their own, their own choice. So, because fundamentally, if somebody wants to change, they have to make that decision. Nobody else can make it for them, right? Same, it's like addiction, basically. These people have become addicted to these hormones that have, like, been going on in their system. So unless they want to change, nothing is going to change. So that's the mentally ill. Like I said, some of these things will overlap with other ones. So the narcissist might be mentally ill as well. They might have bipolar or something like that, right? Or whatever, right? Any case, moving on. The rebel. This one is not necessarily a detrimental personality type, but I put it on here because it relates to this in some ways, right? The person who, maybe when they were growing up, everybody was always trying to tell them how to be, right? And now, like, they only follow their own, like, instinct and their own intuition and their own insight, and their own way of going about things. And sometimes that might look like, they're pushing back against societal norms or whatever. But yeah, basically it's because that was a fundamental part of who they had to be to cultivate their own individuality. So this one is not necessarily a detrimental part on this list, but I put it here because it relates to a lot of the personality types which we've covered here. And like I said, some of these qualities can overlap with each other. You might have the psychopath who is also a rebel, right? So martyr, I put martyr, but I mean more in the sense of somebody who's not necessarily trying to save everybody else, but more so that they have like some kind of like I wouldn't say hero complex, but like almost thinking like they are, like everything they do is good and everything that everybody else does is bad, right? So this might not be martyr, but I just put it as martyr because these people will say like, oh yeah, I'm better than these people because, I'm doing this to help people and I'm doing that to help people. If you're going around saying, I'm doing this and that to help people, chances are you don't care about helping people. You only care about pointing out how much of a good person you are or whatever, right? So, in any case, it's pretty visible when somebody has that complex that they say like, oh yeah, well, like these people aren't contributing anything to society, and me, I'm doing this and this and this, but they're not really doing it out of their heart or out of that genuine like love or light or lack of self-interest. They're doing it for their own self-interest to try and prove something to other people, right? So there's that. Delusionalist is the last one on this list, and this might relate a little bit to all of these in some way, but particularly it overlaps a lot with a narcissist because they have a warped perception on the world. They think that, oh yeah, well, like, I'm right and everybody else is wrong, and like this is the way it is, right? But they're really deluding themselves into thinking that that is reality. They're not seeing things, like we say here, objectively. They're not seeing things objectively. They're seeing things subjectively out of their own lens and their own lens alone. And they'll try and twist everything in their mind to fit, oh yeah, like basically their own storyline or whatever, right? So, and it doesn't mean that they're changing their perspective to be of a culminative benefit or cumulative benefit or a collaborative benefit, like something that benefits everybody as a whole or is genuinely expansive or benefiting everyone around them. It's delusional in the sense where it's only benefiting that person, and that person has to form cognitive dissonance, which is the state of creating some kind of difference in perception between how things have actually transpired versus how I am convincing myself that they've transpired. So your body and mind are not on the same page. That's what cognitive dissonance is. So that's a delusion is basically the key part of that, right? You're deluding yourself into believing something that's not true so that you can stick to a belief, so that you do not have to say, like, to challenge yourself and say, hey, well, maybe like I should self-reflect and maybe I'm wrong and maybe I need to change my perspective on these things. No, a delusionalist and a narcissist will typically say like they won't have those thoughts. They'll just like try to frame it in their mind so that they are still able to stick to whatever their like warped ideals or philosophies are on life, so that they do not have to self-reflect or contemplate anything or reflect, right? So in any case, they're not gonna reevaluate any piece of them for self-growth that will benefit not just them but everyone around them. They'll rather be selfish and say, oh well, I'm just gonna delude myself into believing that like this is there's no need to self-reflect that I'm right or whatever, that person's wrong, that's the way it is. But most of the time these people will not even have the thought or notion to self-reflect because it's not a practice that they have conditioned themselves into doing. So most of these people not even have that thought to self-reflect or anything like that. So that's that list. Now we got some tips over here. So I would say maybe, again, like I said, avoidance will basically negate the need for everything you've seen in this video, because if you can avoid that person, then basically you're not affected by that because you're not around them, they're not in the field, right? But if you cannot avoid them, so then this is where these tips come in. So number one, ignore them. So you want to ignore them, you want to ignore them, you want to ignore them. And even if you're in their presence and like you're conversing in the conversation, just try to ignore them as much as possible, because it shows that you are valuing what you are doing, even if what you're doing is like something as simple as, I don't know, say you're at home and you're dealing with a narcissistic relative, or scum or whatever, or somebody in the workplace, and say you're doing something, say you're at the coffee machine or you're making tea or whatever. Focus on what you're doing, because it shows that you are valuing what you're doing with your time more than the narcissistic self-interest of people who do not have your best interest at heart, right? So that's one thing to take into account. Focus on what you're doing, and again, it doesn't mean that you're not like responding to them or having a conversation. It just means you're focused on whatever you're doing first, and it could be you standing around there, doing nothing, and it maybe looks like the only thing that you're doing is having the conversation, but maybe you're actually self-reflecting, or you're thinking about something else, or you're thinking about, oh, what task do I have to complete once I'm done talking to this loser, right? So essentially, like, those are the things that you can do to, like, maybe you don't have to overtly ignore them in the sense of just like not responding or whatever, but maybe you're subtly ignoring them in the sense where that conversation is a second priority. And you know what they say in success coaching: first things first, second things not at all. So that's how your list of priorities should be in terms of wanting to be successful. First things first, second things not at all. Second thing on the list is you can distract them too, right? A lot of times these people will like to drag out the conversations and go on tangents or whatever, right? But if you can distract them with something that is more of a neutral concept, or something that will negate their negative energy, like, I don't know, say you see something on TV and you're like, oh, look at this or whatever, then they get distracted, or or you say, oh, look at that thing that just happened outside or whatever, they'll get distracted, and they'll lose energy, essentially, because a lot of times these people who are like in these lower vibrations, these negative energies, they cannot, they have very poor concentration, their focus is not good, so they get distracted very easily. So you can distract them and wear out their energy, essentially, over time, right? So it might not be that essentially they're going to immediately get tired and discontinue what they're saying. Maybe they'll still come back to it, but maybe they'll attempt to wrap it up or whatever, because they feel that the conversation has taken more energy from them, because you've bounced around to another topic and come back to that one, right? So another little tip: fatigue. So this kind of goes with number 2. Attempt to fatigue them, or let them tire themselves out, right? So yeah, attempt to fatigue them, letting themselves tire themselves out. So it's almost like a lot of times dealing with these people, it's like let them fatigue or tire themselves out. Yeah, I was gonna say that a lot of times dealing with these people is similar to like dealing with a bratty child, right? Who's throwing a tantrum. A lot of times you just have to let them tire themselves out, by like running around or stomping their feet or whatever. Eventually they're gonna get tired. They're not gonna have the conviction or determination or willpower to stick to whatever they're attempting to project onto you. Why? Because the nature of their energy, negative energy, is that they attempt to take it from other people. So when you're just like excuse the pausing again. Again, just trying to reduce the background sounds. In any case, I'm gonna sum up. But like I said, just allow them to essentially tire themselves out like a bratty child, right? Because chances are, if you're somebody who's like genuinely on your path, genuinely trying to do the things that are in line with your development, genuinely a positive individual in the way that you look at things, always trying to say like, okay, what is the benefit out of this or whatever, your energy is more self-sufficient, so it can last a longer time. These people's energy is very sporadic, which is why they attempt to take it from other people. But in essence, just let themselves tire themselves out. Eventually they're gonna talk themselves in circles, and eventually they're going to get tired of talking, and they're gonna want to go and do something else. So, like I said, let the child throw its tantrum, and then after that, they'll either sum up or they'll just finish off with whatever they're saying, right? So fatigue them, yeah. The last one is finesse them. So I would say this one is one of the most beneficial in terms of how it can be utilized, because think of it like this, and I'm not saying lie to them, I'm saying finesse them. So stand in your own truths and your own authenticity. Stand in your own just like your own voice. I was trying to think of the third one there. In any case, stand in your own energy, and like basically it's almost like they say in Seinfeld, it's not a lie if you believe it, right? So it's not about lying, it's about changing your perspective and then finessing the words so that they can align with your benefit. So if somebody's trying to convince you of something or whatever, and you say, they're saying like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, you should believe this or whatever, and then you say, I see what you mean or whatever, you can frame it in your mind as, I see through your illusions, or I see through your meaning or whatever, right? But it comes out like, I agree with what you're saying, or yeah, you're right, or whatever, right? Even though that's not like what you're saying, right? So it's about finessing the words around. So while they think that you're saying, yeah, I agree with you, what you're really saying is, I see through your illusions, or I see through your meaning. So yeah, in essence though, that's what I have for you in terms of tips. So like, I'm not going to get into a story about how for like the majority of my life I've had to basically contend with narcissists. Like I said, relatives, big problem with narcissists, because it's difficult to get away from them, right? Especially if you're like dependent on them for to live or whatever. So for all you people out there who are field, like verbally, physically, whatever, I feel for you, because like I've been through the same experience. I've been through like verbal abuse for like even up till now in my life. Like, but again, I've learned these like mechanisms that you can use to like negate that impact, right? And just stay focused on your own path, because the truth is that a lot of people have these character traits because they don't care, and a lot of parents out there especially, like, you know, they don't really care about what is in the best interest of their child. They're just attempting to project their ideals onto their kids, because they think, oh, because, you know, whatever, you know, like, basically you're their property or whatever, right? But no, that's not how it works, right? So, like I said, a lot of these people are scum, and, you know, it's hard to come to terms with the realization. It's challenging to come to the realization that, you know, these people who are supposed to be genuinely supportive of me are actually scum, because not only are they trying to just project their ideals onto me, and they don't care about who I am as a person and my own individuality and how I feel, but also they don't see you almost as a human being. They see you as, oh, you're basically here because I allowed you to be here, or something like that, right? So that's a very narcissistic and self-centered way of looking at the world, right? So, in essence, though, that is essentially what you have to just come to terms with. Like, you know, yes, some of these people might be close to you. They might be people you have been in contact with for a very long time. But like I said, you have to look out for yourself first and realize that some of these people genuinely do not have your best interests at heart. I'm not saying that, you know, these people are like evil or whatever, but like a lot of them are possessed by very negative forces, and a lot of times you do not have the ability to break that connection. So acceptance is a very powerful thing in this sense. And like I said, I'm somebody who's still dealing with this. Like, you know, the circumstance that like I'm in right now, I still have to deal with this. I still have to deal with like this negative energy in the field, in my own household. You know, the place where you're supposed to feel loved and nurtured and supported. You don't get that, right? So the place where you're supposed to feel loved and nurtured and supported, you don't get that, and it's challenging for people who go through that, because you see some other people out there, like your friends or whatever, and they have like a loving relationship with their relatives and their like family members or whatever, and you know that you've never really had that connection. So it's challenging, but again, it's something that you can use to make you a stronger individual, because now, like, the other side of that coin is that, or the other side of that double-edged sword is that, you know that, hey, I've gotten stronger. I've become this person with my own willpower alone, with my own strength alone. There was nobody cheerleading in my corner. I did it myself, right? So, again, reframing things in your mind, changing your perspective so that it assists your personal development is really important, right? And that personal development will span into the people that you genuinely resonate and vibrate with on similar frequencies. So when you do encounter people who are worthy of that genuine love that you have had inside your heart all that time, but have not been able to express it with the people around you because they were not deserving or worthy of that. They were not, because the people around you were not worthy of that. Like, when you do meet those people, it will, like, they will say, hey, this is a great person because I genuinely feel better when I'm around this person. He tells me, like, you know, just me being in his life has made it better, right? Or, you know, gives me little words of encouragement or inspiration, podcast, right? So keep cultivating that sense inside you. Don't let other people dim your energy. That's the thing. I'll sum this up by relaying a quote from the sitcom Frasier Crane. He was a radio psychiatrist, similar to me, a radio podcaster, but what he said in an episode was, bullies only win if you let them change who you are. Powerful quote. In essence, that's what I have for you guys today on the Sword of Mercury. And remember, it's always a double-edged sword with these things. You know, you can always look at it from I become stronger with my own willpower alone, and while other people had that support I didn't have, I became strong